Hello everyone, this is Vidyasagar, Assistant Professor, Thandai Periyar Government Institute of Technology, Vellore. In connection of series of lectures CE8702 Railways, Airports, Docks and Harbour Engineering, we are going to talk about airport engineering. Specifically, we are going to discuss about runway and runway orientation. What is a runway? Rectangular area on an airport which is used for landing and takeoff operations. What are all the important questions we have to know before deciding the orientation of any runway? Why runway orientation is so important in airport planning? What is the current practice to lay out a runway? What number of runways must be provided in airports? Why runway orientation is so important? The direction of the runway controls the layout of the other airport facilities such as passenger terminals, taxiways, apron configurations, circulation roads and parking facilities. It means the rest of the facilities which needs to be provided on any of the airport are governed by the orientation of the runway. What is the current practice to lay out a runway? Runways are always oriented in the direction of the prevailing winds so that we can utilize the force of the wind during takeoff and landing operations. In case of takeoff operations, this wind will help us in generating the lift, whereas during the landing operations, the same wind will help in generating the drag so as to stop the landing aircraft. What number of runways must be provided in airports? It entirely depends upon the volume of traffic, that is airport capacity. So these are all the information we require for wind orientation. Preliminary information, headwind, crosswind component, wind coverage and windrows diagram. What is a headwind? It indicates the wind from the opposite direction of the head or nose of the aircraft, which is also known as cockpit, while it is landing or taking off. What is crosswind component, or shortly CWC? It is not possible to get the direction of the opposite wind in direction parallel to the central line of the runway length every day or throughout the year. The wind may blow making some angle with the center line of the runway. The crosswind component depends upon the size of the aircraft and the wing configuration. Recommendations for crosswind component by FAA. For smaller aircraft, the crosswind component should not be greater than 15 km per hour. For mixed traffic, the crosswind component should not be greater than 25 km per hour. For airports serving bigger aircrafts, the crosswind component should not be greater than 35 km per hour. So these are all the recommendations suggested by ICAO and FAA. What is wind coverage? The percentage of time in a year during which the crosswind component remains within the limit, for example 25 km per hour, 15 km per hour, depending upon the type of aircraft and airport, that limits may vary, and that coverage is known as wind coverage of that particular runway. The orientation of the runway should be such that the minimum wind coverage of about 95% is obtained. For busy airports such as international airports, the wind coverage may be increased to as much as 98% to 100%. Calm period. The percentage of time during which the intensity of the wind is less than 6.4 km per hour or simply 6 km per hour is called calm period in any wind data. So for example, if you take a typical wind data, we could see the wind directions, duration of the wind in percentage, intensity of the wind varying in the range of 6.4 to 25 km per hour, 25 to 40 km per hour, 40 to 60 km per hour. And the last column is the percentage of total duration in all the directions. For example, if you take north wind direction, the intensity 6.4 to 25 km per hour is in the duration of 7.4 percentage. Similarly, 25 to 40 km per hour intensity stays for 2.7 percentage, and finally 40 to 60 km per hour stays for 0.2 percentage. So the total duration along the north wind direction is summation of all the intensities, different intensities, that is 7.4 plus 2.7 plus 0.2, and that will give 10.3 percentage. Likewise, we have to sum all the duration of the wind intensity in all the directions. So you could see the total percentage turns out to be 86.5 percentage for all the wind duration in all the directions. To find out the calm period which we are discussing, the percentage of time during which the wind intensity is less than 6.4 or 6 km per hour is 100 percentage minus the total percentage which we found out for all the directions. So it turns out to be 13.5 percentage. This specific period is called calm period and does not influence the operation of landing or takeoff because of low wind intensity.